the way we think about leadership is broken. It's flawed. We tend to think about the leader as this brilliant, visionary person who's supposed to have the answers and tell us what to do. And you know what? Sometimes that works okay, but in today's world, it's too complex. We've got these global challenges. We need leadership and initiative and ownership and stewardship from everybody. So the key is not to have a great leader. The key is to build an organization full of leadership where people throughout, regardless of their title, follow the dance of leading and following, where there's an environment where people can step up. And so if you're out there and you don't have the title of a VP or a CEO or an executive, you can still lead from below, from sideways. And it's actually really powerful when people, regardless of their authority, do that. And it's a super fun adventure, and it's a great thing for your career. And it takes courage. And so I challenge you to be bolder, more courageous, to step up and lead on all the issues that you care about and fix those cultural issues. Have a tough conversation with your boss, because it can really make a difference.
Welcome everyone to Learn, Speak, Teach, powered by Balbert Marketing, LLC. If you love to learn, be inspired, and succeed, we're here to speak and teach. I'm your host, Ben Albert. I believe if you're not living, you're dying. If you're not growing, you're withering. And if you're not engaged, we can turn this off right now, because we here at LST are lifelong learners. And listen, I'm not your guru. I'm an ordinary guy on a journey to learn from the experts. My goal is to host each conversation with a beginner's mindset. Learn and let the experts speak and teach their truths. Join us. Oh yeah, and don't forget to subscribe. This episode is brought to you completely free. Get some stake in the game here. My fee for the show only takes a few moments. If you gain value from the episode, personally share with a friend and explain your favorite part. Bonus points. Please leave us a review on Apple, Google Podcasts, or anywhere you listen to the show. All right, let's get started. I am here with Gregg Vanourek. Gregg, how are you today?
I'm doing very well and feeling it's really good to be with you, Ben. So thanks for having me on.
I'm so excited to be with you today. We were mentioning we've had beautiful weather, and I'm pumped because I just finished your book recently, so I'm humbled to be speaking with you. To go to the bio, you're an award-winning author, a trainer, speaker, and coach on personal development, entrepreneurship, leadership, co-author of 3 prolific books. The one I just read, Triple Crown Leadership, Life Entrepreneurs, also Charter Schools in Action. You're a blogger, TEDx speaker, a mentor. As far as I'm concerned, Gregg, obviously you're a certified cool dude. And yeah, man, I just really appreciate you taking the time with me today.
Well, right back at you. It's really good to be with you, Ben.
Now, though that's just LinkedIn information, website stuff, how do you define yourself? Are you an entrepreneur? Are you a leader? How does Gregg see Gregg?
Yeah. So I'm a husband and father, son, brother, friend, human being, like all of us, on a journey to try to have a good life and make the world a better place and to enjoy it. It's an incredible gift. Yeah, I consider myself an entrepreneurial leader and an author, trying to challenge people to do better, or to do a lot with what they have, take advantage of the opportunities.
I love this, Gregg. I'm excited to nerd out a little bit on Triple Crown, to nerd out about Life Entrepreneurs. But the audience is probably curious where you got your start. I mean, who was little child Gregg? And tell us a little bit of what brought you to this place today, where you're a mentor, you're an author, you're a leader. What brought you here?
Yeah, well, lots of influences. My mom and dad are great influences, and I learned a lot, from them and coaches and teachers about character, about life. But growing up, I had a front row seat to leadership, because my dad had a remarkable business career, and he ended up becoming a 5-time CEO, different companies, and getting into turnarounds. And, he would welcome us as a family to some company events or to meetings. We'd meet for lunch. And I would just hear mom and dad talking about the challenges and the opportunities, meet colleagues. And then in college, I actually had a remarkable professor my junior year, John Roth, he was a philosophy professor. And he really challenged us to ask the big questions in life. Who are you? Why are you here? What are you going to do with your life? How is the world changing? Why does this schooling matter? And it really awakened me to care about the big questions about life. And the next year I took a course called Theories of the Good Life. And so that really opened my eyes to how we need to be intentional with our living. And then my wife is Swedish, and we got back 2 years ago from living in Sweden for 10 years. So that's been a real eye-opening experience as well.
Wow. Give us a few takeaways from Sweden.
Yeah, well, it's a wonderful country, wonderful people. And it's a very successful society and economy up there in the 5 Nordic countries, Sweden and the neighboring countries like Norway, Finland, Denmark, Iceland. And it's very family friendly. So it's really interesting to, I think, travel, go different places, and really try to get a sense of how other people live and how they think, obviously with language, how they talk and these kinds of things. It gets you out of your bubble of just kind of the things that you take for granted, but are actually only a choice or a certain cultural way to do things. And so it's a very healthy experience. And I think in the world today, we need more cross-cultural exchanges and understanding, more openness to different ways that you can choose to live or work, etc.
I love this, getting out of your bubble, cross-cultural understanding. I mean, we've all heard it, or most of us have ultimately, the algorithms these days online on social media, even though you have the option to use the internet and learn just about anything, the algorithm shows you stuff that you are already supporting, you already know, and we're creating a bubble, even in the thought processes in our culture and what we value. So Sweden took you out of that bubble. I'm wondering what brought you back here to America. Where are you calling out of, and what brought you home?
So I'm in the Denver, Colorado area with some mountains just down the street there. I can see from my window, my front door.
Yes.
And it's a wonderful part of the world and part of the country. And so we had a 10-year run there. We have an international family with my wife being from Sweden. Our daughters were born here in Colorado, but they were so young when we moved to Sweden that they didn't remember it. And we always were committed to giving them an international life and experience so they'd have choices. And so, we realized, we need to come back so they can experience American middle school and high school and culture and entrepreneurship here. And also, of course, I meant, it's actually hard, living abroad, and there's a big ocean in between. And so missing family and friends, and, the weather's better here, and, just some things. And so we're trying to create a life that includes both of the countries more. But it's good to be back, even though it was a great experience.
Yeah, it's more than just an analogy. It feels like there's an ocean between us. There's literally an ocean between us. So,
yeah.
So let's talk about Triple Crown. And I want to talk about the story with Secretariat. Not a huge spoiler because it's kind of the start of Triple Crown leadership. But I was just drawn in right away when I heard this story about Secretariat the horse, and you would tell it better than me. So give us some bullet points on who Secretariat was and what he accomplished.
Yeah. So my dad and I wrote this leadership book, and it's a leadership book. It's not a horse racing book, but Ben,
yes.
we found this metaphor of Triple Crown leadership, and we got so into it. We just had so much fun with these stories of Seabiscuit and Secretariat and Man of War and all these great. So Secretariat and Sham were arch rivals in the 70s, and Secretariat, Big Red, and they were just killing it. And they finally came together to compete in the Kentucky Derby, the first leg of the Triple Crown. And Secretariat always broke last out of all the horses because Secretariat had been bumped early on and was kind of spooked. Horses are very sensitive. So he liked to kind of hang back and let the scrum kind of work out and play it safe, and then eventually kind of try to make his move and try to win. And that's what he did in the Derby. And Sham always went out like a rocket, first place. So Sham's way ahead. You got the pack, and Secretariat's in the back. And that happened. And Secretariat didn't make his move until the third turn and started coming up. And by the final stretch in the Derby, they were neck and neck for the final stretch. And it was really exciting. And finally, Secretariat pulls away. And in the Preakness, the second race, same thing happened. Sham goes out, but Secretariat made his move earlier, kind of after the first turn. And they had kind of a match race on the back stretch on the second turn and all the way. And they're kind of neck and neck, and they're really going. And finally, Secretariat pulls away. And but the third leg of the Triple Crown, something astonished people. They were so shocked, if you followed horse racing, because Secretariat did not hold back and went out with the leader from the very beginning. And this was really exciting and worrying, Ben, because the final one, the Belmont Stakes, is the longer one. So if you go out too fast, it's a classic strategic mistake, because you're gonna wear out and you're gonna fade, and the other horse is gonna catch up with you. So you have to play it smart. But Secretariat and Sham went out like rockets in the Belmont, in the Test of the Champion, the long one. And it was like a match race from the get-go. And they were neck and neck, first turn, back stretch, they're still neck and neck, second turn around. But then Secretariat starts to pull away, and he's just going at this unbelievable pace, and everybody's like, "Oh no, he's going to fade. What are they doing?" But he just keeps going and going, and final stretch, he is just way ahead, and it just and then by the time he finishes, he is. The announcer called it 25 lengths in front of the other. These are the best in the world. The length is the length of a horse. And so he's eyeballing from the tower. It's like, usually it's kind of neck and neck, or, half a length, or maybe one length. He called it a 25, but he was wrong. They went back and they measured, and Secretariat won the Triple Crown and the Belmont by 31 lengths. It was like 80 plus meters. He shattered the record. Nobody's come close. It was this unbelievable peak performance. And so we use this as a metaphor in leadership of why not aspire to do something great, to do something, and that's the metaphor, Triple Crown leadership, excellent, ethical, and enduring, something great, the Triple Crown of leadership. And because we're going to all work a lot, it's going to take a big part of our life. So why not aspire to do something great and exceptional with the time that you have with your business or your nonprofit?
I love this. I was fired up reading it. I watched the video. In a moment, I'm going to ask you about ethical, enduring, and excellent, because I wanted to find those terms. But wow, I Google searched it. I watched, and the first race, you can't tell who Secretariat is because he's way in back, and he has this turbocharge ability, and he just somehow works his way to the front. That's very uncommon in horse races that I've seen, that someone's way in the back and then they win it right at the end. But yeah, watching that final Triple Crown race, all the other horses are off screen. They're like off camera. And it was like that turbocharge was the entire time. Blows my mind. I don't know the science of how a horse can do that. Yeah. But I love the metaphor for ethical, enduring, and excellent, right?
Yeah, that's right. And I'm so glad you watched the video. Yes. I showed it to some of my leadership students, and it's really, it's the most exciting 2 minutes in sports. But yeah, I still get chills when I watch that Triple Crown. And you're right. I mean, the camera follows Secretariat for the win, and then it pauses and it pans like way back to get to the other horses. It's just shocking. How is that possible? And the people who were there, they said it felt like, they would never ever see anything like it again. So if you're listening to this podcast or watching, go watch the YouTube after this, after you check this out, definitely. So.
And I'm gonna research that. I'll put some YouTube links in the show notes so you can quickly click on it. Talk about an enduring level of leadership. But is there a specific order of the three E's?
Yeah, so we start with excellent. And so excellent is really achieving exceptional results and impacts. And so in business, it's your profits and it may be growth, but it's also impacts not just financially on shareholders, but positive impacts on stakeholders. And so your employees, your colleagues, your customers, your community. Are you giving back? Are you being responsible with environmental stewardship and carbon footprint? So excellent is the first one, and then ethical is the second one. So you got to get great results, but how? Have you done it ethically? And we define that as kind of doing the right thing, even when it's costly or hard. And so I think it's one thing to get results, but if you're kind of cheating, you're cooking the books. And then the final one is to do excellent and ethical over time. Can you sustain it over time the way that Secretariat sustained that breakneck speed? And so enduring is standing the test of time and operating sustainably. And so enduring is the third leg. And that's where it's really hard. Can you be excellent? Can you be excellent and ethical? And can you do both of those over time? It's a very, very high standard, but it's a lot of fun to aspire to and to work with a team to kind of work at trying to get to that level of peak performance together.
Let's talk about one, success stories, and two, rooms for improvement. First off, if we were to pinpoint leaders that are all three of the E's, they're ethical, they're excellent, they're enduring, who comes to mind as just the epitome of the three E's?
Yeah, so we like so first of all, we interviewed leaders in 61 organizations in 11 countries for this book. We did research, including with a research assistant for years, on the world's most admired companies, the world's most profitable companies, the most innovative, the most ethical companies, the most sustainable companies. And we looked at that over time. And we looked, of course, at all the great leadership books that are out there, different theories and whatnot. So the first thing I'll say to answer your question is I'm going to flip it a little bit, because we actually prefer to focus on the leadership practices and not the who happens to be an example right now of this. Because what we find is, and you see this in some of the leadership books in the past, like Good to Great is a great classic book, In Search of Excellence. But if you focus too much on the list of kind of which companies are exemplars, things change. I mean, the world changes. And so often the ones on the list, they change. The industry changes. There's a pandemic, or, the board, somebody retires or whatever. And that it makes our point in some ways of how hard it is to endure over time, right? But some of our favorite examples, Mayo Clinic, for example, the hospital system and the health education system, it's been around for 100 plus years and operated at such a high level when it comes to research, when it comes to patient care and innovation in the space. It's not to say that they're perfect, but it's really a remarkable story. The KIPP schools, the network of schools, has done some really remarkable things, that are innovative and brought some, remarkable outcomes to students in different places. Ashoka, Share Our Strength in different places. Infosys in India has been it's been interesting how in industries and regions in the world where bribery was so common, they were able to not get into that game of paying those bribes and still be very successful as a global conglomerate anyway. So that was really a remarkable example as well that stood out to me.
Now, it's one thing to be excellent, but to be ethical and enduring, that seems something that you really have to put some leadership work into. Any examples of someone that was just a company or a person that was completely excellent, but because of ethics or because they couldn't endure, they fell on their face?
Yeah. Well, I mean, there unfortunately there are tons of examples, and so the famous one is Enron, that was this darling of the media. That I mean, the financial performance was so stellar, and industry leading, market share, profits, CEOs on the cover of magazines, and it turned out that underneath it was a rotten culture of deception and so much pressure and this sort of arrogance. And there was a book about it called "The Smartest People in the Room." It was kind of this thing of like, we're the smartest. We have the sense of entitlement. We can game the system. And you kind of get caught up in that game of making your numbers and having to live up to this, vision of just short-term financial. And of course, there's all sorts of other examples over time of WorldCom and MCI, et cetera. But what's interesting is that there are waves of scandals. I mean, we keep having them here in the U.S. We have them around the world, and you see them even in like the Olympics or different sports, cheating scandals and doping scandals. You see them in nonprofits. You see it in government. So I think one of the issues here, Ben, is that we tend to take ethics for granted. And in business, this is really true. A lot of people have this mentality like, hey, everybody's doing it. You just got to do that, to be able to keep up and to compete or succeed. And it's a false choice. It's not a choice between excellent or ethical. In fact, if you are able to be ethical, it will help you over time, because it reduces the trust problems and the credibility problems. You're able to hire better people because your reputation and your character, and you don't have to train people. And so there's all sorts of benefits of the speed of trust and the benefits of being ethical over time. And so that's what I think progressive leaders understand.
Interviewing all these leaders, these progressive leaders in 11 countries, did you say? 12 countries?
Yeah, 11 countries, yeah.
Is there a commonality is there any general commonalities that cause people to lose ethics or not endure in regards to too much money, too much power, too much responsibility? What causes someone who is excellent to fall on their face? Is there a specific, I want to make sure I don't make that mistake,
Yeah. There's some really good research from a scholar named Ken Goodpaster on this. A few things that are common to this, and we saw this too. Number one is fixation. You're so fixated on winning, on being the best, or on, you can look at it like climbing Mount Everest, that even though the weather is bad and everything, you put your team in danger. And so it narrows, your brain gets so narrowed that you can't see with perspective, and then the other thing is you rationalize. Well, everybody's doing it. It's just this one time, you don't understand the pressure we're under. And our brains are actually rationalization machines. We think, our cognition is emotional, and then our thinking catches up, and we come up with a rationalization for why we made the decision, which was in fact emotional, right? And then the last one, the third one, is detachment. We become detached from our humanity. A lot of these people, they didn't start out as kind of this horrible, evil people, but they get caught up in the game. And even though that they're a son or a daughter and a brother, and they just sort of detach from their values, from their humanity, from their sense of perspective, which is so important to keep us real.
This is powerful. I mean, right from the start of our conversation, you're a father, you're a husband, you're a son, you're a community member. That's your identity, not the leadership coach or the TEDx speaker, or the entrepreneur. Your identity is something more wholesome and true to you. Wow, I'm just seeing you're living what you preach here, Gregg, and I appreciate that.
Well, I'm trying to, and we're all on that journey. We're all going to fall down, as I have many times. And
Yeah.
one of the things in my current work, Ben, that I'm really excited about is focusing on the common traps of living and leading. And so my work focuses on kind of three levels of leadership: leading self, leading others, and leading change. But leading self is really the core of it. And I think that's where we get into trouble. And we all fall into traps. And one of the big traps, and I'm just writing a blog about this recently, is our identity often gets too caught up in our work or our title or on whether we happen to be succeeding right now or kind of winning this kind of thing. And the problem with that is, hey, I've been a lifelong athlete. I love sports and competition, and there's real value in it. But if it becomes only about that, that's that fixation, that's that narrowing, that's that lack of perspective. It can take you to some pretty dark places. And life does have its ups and downs. So we need that kind of safe harbor of kind of, who am I, and can I be good even if things aren't going well right now? Right? That's that kind of perspective and that grounding and a resilience in something deeper and some foundations. And so that's the challenge of leading self.
In regard to leading self, whether it's using your father or yourself as an example, what's a time that you fell on your face, or if you could go back in time, you realize that you would have made a different leadership decision? Has that happened to you? And do you have any for instances?
Oh yeah, it's happened. So like, how much time do we have then here? But yeah,
as much time as we need. As much time as we need.
All right. So I'll give one. So I had been in Washington, D.C., in the think tank world and in the foundation world, doing kind of education reform and civil society work. I went out back to get an MBA, and I wanted to work in the private sector and get an experience. So I joined an online education startup that was a scale up. And we raised a lot of money. We grew very rapidly. We became the market leader in the first few years, and we had a very high quality product, and it was exciting. I mean, we were hiring hundreds of people in a couple of years, and I was leading a team that was flying all over the country, doing deals and starting up big new ventures. They were virtual schools. And it was hard. It was intense. It was stressful, but it was fun. And I was learning. I was fresh out of business school. But it was punishing too. And I got caught up in it. I was working so much and I was so focused on work. I wasn't as healthy as I should be. And I was letting some of my really important relationships slip because I didn't have the time. And part of it was I was so invested in not letting my colleagues down and the company down because we really needed these deals. And it was, we were growing. We just, things were going to fall apart if we didn't keep growing, if we didn't land the big thing. So, and I took that very seriously, but it was unhealthy. And so, after a while, it was exhausting. And, I was realizing I was kind of a foreigner to myself because I wasn't living in integrity with my values. And then the company started making some decisions that I disagreed with. And so I was really started wrestling with is this still a good fit for me? And one of the big mistakes that I made was wrestling with that decision too long. I would go for these long runs of like, should I stay or should I go? And then the next month I was going for the long run, and the next month, and as my gut knew way before I was ready to admit it was time for me to leave. I needed to make some changes. And I went on a self-imposed sabbatical, and I took some downtime to get my life back. And it was one of the best things I ever did. It's just that I waited, too long to get to that point.
Self-imposed sabbatical. Is this a common term? I love it. It seems like it's a requirement.
No, it's not a common term. And it was, I got to tell you, it was really weird because my colleagues, I told them like, hey, you know what, I'm leaving the company. And of course, the first thing, they want to know why, and then they want to know what you're doing next. And if I said, I don't know what I'm doing next. And inside, I was so happy with that because it was so right for me to leave. It was not that it was a bad place or, these are good people. I was really proud of what we did, but it was time for me to leave. But it would freak people out. They're like, you don't know what you're doing next? And that's really rare. That's really weird for people. right? But I think actually this notion of a sabbatical from academia is actually a really good one, because the world, the pace that we have can be pretty punishing. If you work for a long time, there's a lot of stresses. And maybe if you're a father, you've got a mortgage, or you're a mother, and there's a pandemic. I mean, who knows? There's a crisis and a recession. And too many people don't take advantage of these transition times. These transition times can be very generative and very giving. And so I think we as a society and we in our organizations need to build in more margin for sabbaticals, self-imposed or otherwise, or transitions where it's okay to not be in that summer of achievement your whole life. We've got to go through different, here we are in the fall. Yeah, and then we're going to be in the winter, and we got then the spring, just like the natural cycles. And I learned this from the Hudson Institute of Coaching. There are cycles of our lives and seasons of our lives that we need to honor. We can't force the summer all the time. Life doesn't work that way.
I love it. I forget who said it. I'm so sorry that I do. But at the Global Leadership Summit, one of the speakers said, quote, "Napping is the new hustle." Napping is the new hustle. Where, I mean, what did God do on the last day? He took a nap.
Yes.
So I love the concept of self-imposed sabbaticals. I'm wondering, let's say someone already does that, or they feel comfortable, but they're feeling stress on a day-to-day basis or a week-to-week basis. What does Gregg do, or what does Gregg recommend to reduce that stress today? Because if I'm stressed today, I'll be stressed tomorrow, I'll be stressed the next day. What do you recommend for people that are like, I need more than a sabbatical, I need to solve this right now?
Yeah, it's a great question. And, I just want to start by saying some people are dismissive of this whole notion of the need for renewal or self-care, resilience, naps, and what they'll say is this kind of macho, like, oh, come on, toughen up. And, I got to tell you, I've been an athlete my whole life. I played a lot of sports. I did, triathlons and stuff. And so, but the metaphor is actually appropriate, because if you're going to be a high-performing athlete, you need the cycles of intense training followed by your recovery. I mean, that's just the way it works.
Yes.
And that's both physical phenomenon and a mental one, and emotional one as well. And for some, spiritual, right? And so these practices of self-care and leading self and renewal, for me, it's a daily practice and a weekly practice and a monthly practice and an annual practice, where there's you gotta have to have a rhythm that you build in terms of the habits. And so it's having a nice morning starting by a really good night of sleep, and having a good downtime routine, and starting with tea and reading and a run or a walk or a bike ride, or a hike or something, starting off well, and taking micro breaks here and there. For me, it's conversation with friends, or a lot of reading and whatnot, and doing things that I enjoy as well. And so having calendarizing that for me is important, I think. And so I've got kind of regular routines. And then, is there a weekly review? Is there a monthly or a quarterly? And kind of an annual, kind of life look, right? In terms of, am I upholding my vision and my values and my sense of purpose? But first, you got to get clear on what those are, right? And so I really like this, these practices of building them into the flow of your days and your weeks and beyond.
How do I get clear? Might be the most beginner question ever, but let's say I'm uncertain as to where to start, or what I value, or where I should go. How do I get clear on my vision? How did you get clear on your vision?
Well, I think the core is to get clear on a sense of purpose, on the values, and then the vision. That's the foundation. And then you can get into my strengths and my aspirations and my passions and these kinds of things. So these things can be confusing. So in Triple Crown Leadership, as you recall, we have a chapter on the colors, and that's kind of purpose, values, and vision. And most people think about the company vision statement, the company values, but it's very powerful to have a personal purpose, values, and vision. And so the values are kind of, what do I care about? What do I value the most? right? And how do I want to behave in the world that gives me a sense of integrity? And then the vision is, what does success look like for me in my life, for my career, for my team, and for my company, et cetera. You develop a vision statement, and you can have more narrative around that. You can paint a picture. But the values are your kind of core beliefs and principles of what you value the most that you're going to uphold. But then the purpose is, why are we doing it all? And why are we here? What's the point? Right? And so there's kind of a deeper why, and that tends to be kind of a shorter thing that can lead to a more elaborate vision statement. And the vision will take you 5, 10 years, maybe 20 years, but the purpose can be more lasting. The Mayo Clinic's purpose can be 100 plus years and still going. It's about caring for the patient, improving quality of life, et cetera. Good experience for the employees. And so if you do it well, it can be really lasting. And so it's paying attention to the signals in your life when you feel energy or where you feel off. Like that story I told where I kind of felt foreign from myself because I drifted away from my values. And so my gut is screaming that, but I'm too busy to pay attention, right? And so I've got to sit and get quiet and have my renewal thing so I can actually be, wait a minute, something is bothering me here, where there's a disconnect, and I've got to bring it back in line with my values.
Thank you for sharing your own personal vulnerabilities, Greg. Everyone can learn a lot from seeing someone who isn't perfect and maybe was misaligned and then redirected back to his values, back to his purpose. I want to give you an opportunity. I can't talk today. I'm so excited, Greg. An opportunity to talk about life entrepreneurs. But before we move just there, I'd be doing a disservice if we didn't mention how someone purchases Triple Crown Leadership, how they should go purchase it, keep in touch with you. What's the best spot to send people?
Yeah, so for Triple Crown Leadership, we've got a website that's pretty elaborate. It'll tell you about the book, and it also has a lot of free resources. You can contact us there. And we've got a kind of a free manifesto, too, for the leadership derailers. What derails you as a leader? And on the website, it points you to different places. You can go to Amazon. You can go to barnesandnoble.com, or the best way to do it, your online retailers.
It'll be in the show notes as well. I want to make it as simple as possible. And if anyone wants to reach out to me or reach out to Greg, we'll respond, send you the links, say hello. I want to talk about Life Entrepreneurs because that's a book I haven't read yet. And that's your most recent release, right? Well, what's the bird's eye view look on what Life Entrepreneurs is about?
Yeah, so Life Entrepreneurs, I co-wrote it with a friend and former colleague, Christopher Gergen. And so we say, why not be the entrepreneur of your life? By which we mean integrate your life and work with purpose and passion. So an entrepreneur is somebody who not only starts a business or a new venture, but they have a sense of ownership of it. They take responsibility. They have a vision. They take risk. They have a sense of adventure and fun, and they work with people. And so we use that as a metaphor for entrepreneur your life, regardless of whether you're a business entrepreneur or what profession. And so for that book, we also interviewed a bunch of people. We interviewed 55, mostly business entrepreneurs and social entrepreneurs around the world, but really a wide variety. There was a fighter pilot. There was a minister. There was a civil rights advocate. There was a rancher. There was a yoga entrepreneur, games, organic tea, musician. But all of them chose to live their life intentionally based on a sense of purpose and values and their passions, and sort of manifested who they really are in their ventures, in their family, in their travel, in their education, in their dreams, and just kept doing it intentionally. And so it's really a process of creatively crafting your life and work according to your own guiding lights and vision. And I got to tell you, it was so inspiring hearing their stories. And some of them are famous, some of them are not at all. I mean, we interviewed Howard Schultz, the visionary behind Starbucks. We interviewed the visionaries behind Chipotle, and Cory Booker, civic entrepreneur, and all sorts of people. But a lot of them you never heard of before, but they have an amazing backstory. that causes you to reflect on, how am I living my life? And what are the dreams that I have that are still in that dream box, that it's been gathering dust, that maybe I need to bust that back open and just go for it?
Help us ask ourselves that question: how am I living my life? By providing maybe one of those stories, big or small, of one of these entrepreneurs, what mission they were aligned with, their vision, how they did it, their create, any of it. Give us one of these case studies so I can ask the question to myself.
Yeah. So I've got an old friend, Paul Nazarani, and he grew up going to, every summer he would go make some ice cream with his, after the hard day's work on the farm, waking up at 4 a.m. or whatever. And those childhood memories, he told me, were soaked with bliss. And he just had such a sense of happiness of being with friends and making homemade ice cream after a hard day's work. And that was his dream. But he forgot about that dream, and he went on and he grew up, he went to school, he became a CPA, and he had an accounting practice. And then he ended up in New York City, been working for a bunch of startups that his friends had launched, which was their dream ventures. And he was doing some financial help with them. And he was kind of helping them with their dream, and working hard, long hours, intense New York City. And then the towers came down, 9/11, '01. And, he could have died that day, age 30 something. And it just really hit him, as you can imagine. And it caused his childhood dream box to just burst back open and say, wait a minute, what am I waiting for? And so he went crazy. He started going around to all the ice cream places and just talking to the owners and, tell me about your business. Tell me about your product. Where are you sourcing it from? How's it going? What about marketing? And he was driving around and everything. And people were like, what are you doing? And so one day, my friend Paul was at Grand Central and on a lunch break on a Sunday, working hard over the weekend. And he sees that his favorite ice cream store is going out of business. And he's like, oh, it's sad. Business is tough. It's a hard industry. But he also sees that they are auctioning off all of their assets right there in front of it.
Wow.
And he says, wait a minute, I could get into the ice cream business right now.
Right.
He says, no, that's crazy. I don't have a business plan. I've just been learning. I don't know. I'm not ready. This is crazy. I should walk away, right? That's the smart play, right? Wait a minute. This is my dream, and here it is right in front of me. So my friend Paul, is walking down 42nd Street, calling people, who's got a truck? Because I now have this industrial ice cream maker. I'm in the ice cream business, and he went for it that day on the spot. And it just completely opened up this new sense of, I own my life again. I'm on an adventure. This is fun. And, I'm going to just go for it. I don't know exactly how it's come together, but I'm going to give it a shot. And, boy, it has really, between he and his now wife, it's really changed their life and the way they think about just, let's be in the moment and let's go for it more. Let's be a little bolder, a little bit more courageous.
Very bold. I love that. I own my life again. Paul is a rock star. That incredible, Greg. Incredible. I'm wondering, so I haven't read Life Entrepreneurs yet. Let's say I read it 3 times front to back. Let's imagine I've read it 5 times. I understand the material. What's the best question I could ask you about that book? What are some of those major lessons that someone that's well-versed in this might be curious about? And how would you answer that question?
Yeah. So I guess, what are some of the keys to kind of flipping our outlook on life away from the passive life, or as Richard Leiter talks about, the default life, into the acting person, into the I'm the entrepreneur, whatever metaphor, I'm the author of my life, And so I think some of the keys that we discovered in our interviews, and again, the research that we did, we read all these books. There's so many great resources out there. One would be to have a sense of your core identity, like we talked about earlier, purpose, values, and vision, but then to honor it with what we called authentic integrity. right? So to really be you, not a version of somebody else. Don't try to copy Paul. Paul was Paul's dream. What is your dream? What makes you come alive? And to have a sense of integrity, not only in terms of the ethical dimension, but a sense of wholeness. My whole life coheres in the way I interact with my spouse or partner, my friends, my career, my kids, it kind of makes sense because I'm just being me, right? So another one was, the whole thing about Paul was the courage to try, right? Is stepping up, and it is a risk, right? I mean, there are implications of our careers and on our income and on our status, but boy, are you going to regret it if you don't go for it, right? And then the last theme that I think is really important to all this, Ben, is what we call pervasive service. It's an ethic of contribution as a defining feature of our lives. It's not just all about me. It's not about entrepreneuring my life so that I can be on the cover of a magazine, so that I can feel good and successful. To have a good life, I've got to give back. I've got to connect with people and contribute and have a sense of vitality as well. And so that's what makes me, looking back, not to be alone and successful, but to be connected with great friends and family and to be part of something bigger than myself and just me, because I've been going for this quest for impact, for service, as well as something great like we talked about earlier with Triple Crown.
I wish I had a pen and paper. I would have wrote this down, but this is the time, Greg, when I ask people to click the back button to 60 seconds and take some notes. Because the two things that really stick out for me is, what is your dream? That's a question I'm going to ask myself. I think every listener should ask that. What is your dream? But then how do I give back? Because you ask that first question and you follow that dream. I love that you noted that it's more than just following your own dream. It's how do I take that dream and positively affect the people around me?
Yeah, and I think there's something big there in what you just said, Ben, because giving back, it cheapens it a little bit to make it just a year-end charitable thing or just something where I volunteer on the weekends. Like, those are really good too. But is there a way where you can give in the context of even your business by being a good colleague, by being a role model to the people who report to you, by being a good team member, by serving the customer well and being integrating service into your operations as well. And so really trying to integrate it into the fabric of your days, of your work, of your career, so that it's not something separately you do or you view as kind of this Mother Teresa thing or this Peace Corps thing. But why can't we serve in the context of every day, big and small? Ask somebody how they're doing, hold the door open for somebody. If somebody's struggling, ask them if you can help them, cook them a meal. These things are very meaningful to people as well.
I like this. I'll put myself on the spot. I need momentum, and COVID, spending a lot of time just alone. When I lose that momentum, I'm less friendly on the street. I'm less compassionate at times. And again, just saying hello to that stranger walking down the street builds that momentum where, okay, I was positively affecting this person's life in a tiny little way. How can I build on this momentum and have a bigger impact and affect the bigger picture? And I like to put myself on the spot because I'm in that category that if I don't get those little daily wins, I'll start feeling bad about myself. And did you get that kind of feedback from any of the entrepreneurs you spoke with when writing this book?
Yes. And I think this notion is actually this kind of notion of little wins, of building progress is really important because, it can be a little abstract or a little too overwhelming to think entrepreneuring my life and, oh my God, am I ready to go for what Paul did? And, not everybody has to throw everything away and go for a startup venture. You can have small wins in your current context that then open up. And it's actually smart not to go after too much at once. So if I think there's some wisdom in sort of addressing the biggest traps first, right? To kind of get some progress there that kind of stabilizes you. And then you can go into this different area. And so often one of the things is we're not taking care of ourselves. So our vitality bucket is low, right? Or, we're not connecting enough with people. So maybe what can I do? Can I work out with a friend? Can I go for a walk with a friend, or just call somebody, and sort of maybe do that more often and then build on that? I think that there's a lot of wisdom in that.
What's your number one? You can give me up to 3 things. What fills up your vitality bucket? Like what makes you feel enduring and strong and excited for the day? Is there anything specific to Gregg that you just love to do?
Yeah. So, one of the things that I love to do is, and a sign of this is sort of getting lost in it. I can get lost in and lose a sense of time when I'm writing and editing. And so, I've got a portfolio, I've got a business, I do workshops and retreats, I do teaching, speaking, coaching, but writing is something that's generative that informs all the other aspects of my business. And so that whole process of kind of designing like the topic and the architecture of the piece, it's a book or a chapter, a blog, the flow of it, and like, where are we going to go? What are the key ideas? Are there some stories as examples and research? And then throwing it out there, going for it, and not being inhibited, and then going back to it and improving it and cutting it and editing it. And that's something, one thing I love to do. And then, these moments where I can be, in relationship with people that I care about. My wife, helping our younger daughter last night with her homework when she's really struggling after being sick for a week and she's beaten down, and, just feeling like, wow, I can help ease that anxiety a little bit and be there with her and for her in ways that she's going to do for me when I'm down too. That's it's a beautiful gift to have that opportunity with friends and family to do that, and colleagues too.
It is beautiful. And Gregg, I'm using every minute that we scheduled today. I appreciate your time. I'm going to move into rapid fire. And basically how this works, it's a mix of Family Feud and Whose Line Is It Anyway? Family Feud, because we have about 30 seconds here. So quick answers, first thing that comes to mind. You can fill in the blank too, because whose line is it anyway? The points don't matter. There's no rules. It's completely subjective to Gregg. So to get started, coffee or tea?
Tea. I lived in London for a year. Got the tea bug. Love it.
Beer or wine?
Both. Come on. But I got to start with beer more often.
What about cats or dogs, or even fill in the blank?
Surprisingly, cats. I had no pets growing up. We've got a dog and 3 cats, and the cats are these fascinating creatures. They're really interesting. Yeah.
Favorite just decompressing hobby, weekend, not worried about work. What are you up to?
Love to go for runs, to be outside on the deck reading with my tea. And it's cool if some cats go by too.
Give me 3 books or podcasts that I need to add to my long laundry list, but I'm adding it to it.
Let Your Life Speak by Parker Palmer, a beautiful little short book. Illusions, a novel by Richard Bach, very powerful. And then I love The Alchemist, another novel by Paulo Coelho, the Brazilian writer.
Gregg, tell us one more time, how do we keep up? Are you on social media, the website? Give us everywhere you'd like us to follow you and be in touch.
Yeah, I love being online, connecting with people. So my main website is greggvanourek.com, GreggVanourek.com. And there you can find all the books and the blogs and stuff. We also have a triplecrownleadership.com website for the book with a bunch of leadership resources too. And then I'm definitely on LinkedIn a lot, and I love Twitter. I have fun with Twitter. I'm on Twitter at G Vanourek.
I'm going to make sure I'm following you. I'm pretty sure I already am, but all the listeners should too. I can personally recommend Triple Crown Leadership. I think it's a no-brainer that Life Entrepreneurs is also great. I actually wrote down a quote that I forgot to bring up, so let's close on this quote. I kind of want your quick bite, but it was basically, I highlighted this on my ebook of Triple Crown, and you and your father said, The key to building a Triple Crown organization is not in the hands of a single super leader, but rather in the hands, minds, and hearts of ordinary people who have become extraordinary leaders and stewards of the culture of character. And that was about head in the heart. It was in that section. And there's a lot to decompress there, but give us a quick bite of what that quote means to you.
Well, I'm so glad you zoned in on that one, Ben, because the way we think about leadership is broken. It's flawed. We tend to think about the leader as this brilliant, visionary person who's supposed to have the answers and tell us what to do. And you know what? Sometimes that works okay, but in today's world, it's too complex. We've got these global challenges. We need leadership and initiative and ownership and stewardship from everybody. So the key is not to have a great leader. The key is to build an organization full of leadership where people throughout, regardless of their title, follow the dance of leading and following, where there's an environment where people can step up. And so if you're out there and you don't have the title of a VP or a CEO or an executive, you can still lead from below, from sideways. And it's actually really powerful when people, regardless of their authority, do that. And it's a super fun adventure, and it's a great thing for your career. And it takes courage. And so I challenge you to be bolder, more courageous, to step up and lead on all the issues that you care about and fix those cultural issues. Have a tough conversation with your boss, because it can really make a difference.
Gregg, I wish I had another 45 to an hour with you. This has been incredible. I appreciate you coming on the show.
Great to be here. Thank you, Ben, for having me.
Thanks again for listening to Learn, Speak, Teach, powered by Bauer Marketing, LLC. You need to go subscribe if you haven't yet. This show is completely free. If you gain value from the episode, personally share with a friend and explain your favorite part. Leave us a review on Apple, Google Podcasts, or anywhere you listen to the show. All right. Thanks once more for listening to LST. I am so grateful. Talk to you soon.